program, you can ask us your questions about memorization of the Holy Quran. For example, you want to memorize the Holy Quran, but you don't know how. You can ask us your questions. Okay. Okay, who's gonna ask the first question?
How do you memorize?
Hands up. You.
How do you memorize the Quran?
Can I answer this question in the second part of the program, please? Sorry. Somebody open the Quran. Trust me. Thank you. Okay, somebody open the Quran, recite the beginning of a verse. Who's the first? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ليكفروا بما آتيناهم.
Thank you. We have 3 of this verse in the Holy Quran, but I think this one that you're asking is in chapter 9, right? Okay. It's in chapter 9. The page number is 273, right? Okay. What's the part number? 14. And where in the page this verse is? It's at the beginning of the page. What's the beginning of the next page? Wallahu anzala min as-sama', right? Correct at this place. What's the beginning of the next page? وَيَعْبُدُونَ. What's the beginning of the next page? Next page. Next page. Next page. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ. Next page. يوم تأتي. في السلسلة. Okay. The next one. 122, second verse. صفحة 122. Okay, it's chapter Ma'idah, right? The beginning of the page is وَإِذَا سَمَعُوا. What's the beginning of the second verse? I don't remember. وَمَا لَنَا لَا نُؤْمِنُ بِهِ. Okay, I'm going to recite this verse for you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما لنا لا نؤمن بالله وما جاءنا من الحق ونطمع أن يدخلنا ربنا مع القوم الصالحين. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد.
Well, what's the beginning of the previous page?
قل يا أهل الكتاب.
قل يا أهل الكتاب. Previous page.
فحسبوا ولو أن أهل القرى وإذا ناديتهم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا فقد بين
ثم وقفنا في الرسالة.
اللهم صل على
Okay, I'm going to make it a little harder, okay? Somebody tells us just a word, okay? but just try to select a word which has not repeated a lot in the Holy Quran. For example, don't say Allah. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ. What's the chapter name?
Kahf.
Chapter Kahf. The page number is 295. Okay, for those who have Quran, open. Do you find it? Where in the page this verse is?
آیه یک مونده به آخر.
Okay. The bottom of the page, okay, I think 3 lines to the end of the page. 4 lines to the end of the page. Right? وَلْيَتَلَقَّفْ 295. Did you find it? Did you? Okay, please say so. What's the part number? 15. What's the beginning of this page?
وَإِذْ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ.
وَإِذِ اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ. What's the beginning of the next page?
وَكَذَلِكَ أَرْسَلْنَا.
وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْطَيْنَا. What's the next page?
وَاصْبِرْ.
What's the beginning of the next page?
وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ.
What's the beginning of the next page?
الْمَالُ.
What is the next chapter?
مريم.
Chapter Maryam. What's the next chapter?
طه.
What's the beginning of the chapter Taha? Taha. Sorry.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. طه.
Say the next verse.
ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى.
Because you said that was so easy, I told her to recite the next verse too. Okay, what's the next chapter?
أنبیا.
What's the next chapter?
حج.
What's the next one?
مؤمنون. نور. فرقان. شعراء.
Please recite that one.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Okay, the next one. Nobody wants to ask any question?
Has it that it? Okay.
إذ نفشت فيه غنم القوم. What is the chapter name?
أنبیا.
Chapter Anbiya. Page number is 328, I think, right? And for those who have Quran, open the Quran, please. 328.
Can you do it according to subject? Any ayahs, any verses about Imam Ali? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I wanted to ask guys this question.
Oh, you're going to ask the guys? Oh, okay. Okay.
Because you said you have a few guests, right?
I have guests. Everyone's my guest.
No, gifts.
Gift?
Yeah.
Inshallah un dunya hamne dige.
We will reserve
Ador
time for
actually
everybody who answers the question. Okay, if you want me to answer this question, I will. But I want to...
Well, ask the brothers if somebody can answer it first.
Okay. Does anybody know any verse
There's
about Imam Ali alayhi salam?
The brother is answering over there.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. See, a young person.
إنما بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا والذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون فمن يتولى الله فمن وتر. It's basically
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else know any verses? Any other verses? Don't you know? Do you know? This verse is saying about what they are asking, and in the interpretation of this verse it is said that thing that they were asking about was about the Velaya of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the first verse of chapter Naba. Okay, does anybody else know any verses? إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت. It's about أهل البيت, including Imam Ali. Okay, does anybody else? Yes, first few verses of chapter Mu'minun, and you guys know everywhere in the Quran it is said Mu'min, it means Imam Ali alayhi salam, not anybody else. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. This verse is about Imam Ali and about Hazrat Fatima Zahra. Okay, any other verses?
Turn your phone on. It's silent. I called somebody.
ومن الناس من يشري نفسه ابتغاء مرضات الله. Okay.
Yeah, she came and said it. She came and said it.
Yes, thank you. This verse is in chapter Ahzab. Okay, for those who answered this question, please say Salawat. Okay, the last verse. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. Page number is 419. No, 421. Open the Quran, please. Did you find it? The beginning of the page. Did you find it? Yes? Okay. What's the part number? 21. What should I ask? What's the beginning of the previous page? قُلْ لَنْ يَنْفَعَكُمُ الْفِرَاقُ. What's the first verse of the chapter Ahzab?
يا أيها النبي اتق الله.
يا أيها النبي اتق الله. Please say Salah. Okay, I'm going to make it a little harder. Okay? Somebody gives us a subject.
Hijab.
About hijab. Do you know any verses in the Quran?
سوره احزاب. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن ذلك أدنى أن يعرفن فلا يؤذين وكان الله غفورا رحيما.
Yes, this verse was in chapter Ahzab. There is another one in another chapter. What's that one?
سوره نور.
Chapter Nur. The page number is 353. Open the Quran, please. There is a very long verse over there. Did you find it? Did you find it? The beginning of the verse is وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ. The last verse in the page, right? And this verse is talking about hijab. It's the last verse, right? It's the last verse. Yeah. This verse is very long. Okay. Okay. What's the beginning of the page?
فإن لم تجدوا.
Is it right? Okay. Okay, I didn't know. What's the beginning of the previous page?
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا.
What's the beginning of the previous page?
والذين جاءوا.
إن الذين جاءوا. What's the previous chapter?
حج. مؤمنون.
Chapter Mu'minun. What's the previous chapter?
حج.
The previous one?
أنبياء.
The previous one?
طه.
Previous?
مريم.
The previous?
كهف.
Okay, first say so. As the last question, our brother is asking a question. There are a lot of Atayna running in the Quran. It's in chat. Okay, so we have a few rewards for those who answer the questions. Okay, our brother asked, where is Ali Ibrahim in the Quran? The verse is إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. Did you want this? So there is no Ali Ibrahim in that verse. Ali Ibrahim is only here. ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب وقف. I recited the same verse. إن الله اصطفى آدم ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على العالمين. Okay. What's the chapter name?
آل عمران.
What's the beginning of the page?
يوم تجدوا.
يوم تجدوا. What's the part number? 3. Okay. For now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I will give you a reward. You didn't give me anything, but I'm going to give you a reward.
No.
That's the best one. Okay. Can somebody say a verse about Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the Quran? Hands up, please. Not you. You know? يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. Please say salawat for him. Okay. Does anybody else know any other verses about Imam Hussein? You have to recite the verse. Kaf ya ain sad. Is it related to Imam Hussein? Is it related to Imam Hussein? Really? Can you explain? Can you explain it? Can you? Thank you. Please say salawat. Okay. We have only 2 other gifts for sisters. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question about
ساعت واقعا شما کم تلفن نداریم بگم شما الان تلفن چرا؟
Okay, can anybody tell us a verse about Imam Zaman?
نه حالا ما میدیم از شما میدیم
From sisters. We don't have any remark from brothers. I'm sorry. A verse about Imam Zaman. Yes, sister. I can't hear you. Sorry.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم جاء الحق وزاق الباطل بما بينهما
Thank you. Please say that was right. And the last one. Okay. Somebody else. A verse. Another verse about Imam Zaman.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون
بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. Please say that was right. Our sister is asking, there is another verse in which it says وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. It's in chapter Qasas. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ونريد أن نمن على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض ونجعلهم أئمة ونجعلهم الوارثين. Please say that.
Okay, mashallah. You're 21. How old is your sister? Okay. How old is your sister? 14 years old. And I have to say, first we're going to do salawat for them, but I think also, more importantly, it's their mother who raised two children like this. She only had two children, and both children are Hafiz of Quran. That's the model of Hazrat Zahra. واقعا مادر نمونه. برای سلامتیش صلوات بفرست. And for her two children, please. Salawat befrest. I just have one last question from them, and that is, as far as memorizing the Quran, how difficult is it? Because I know, especially for a lot of us who have come from the West and had to learn Arabic and may not be as strong as some people, I want to talk about a little bit, because you said you became a Hafiz of Quran in 1 year? 1 year, Hafiz of Quran, mashallah. Can you just give us a little bit, brother, and tell us about the difficulties and how you did it?
Thank you, sister. About the difficulty of memorization of the Holy Quran, I can tell you that when you look at it, you think it's very hard. Okay? If you, for example, if you want to memorize any other book, you would never be able to memorize it. But this is a book which is full of blessings. Okay? When you go through it, Allah helps you, and you will be able to memorize it, and it's going to be so easy, easier than that you ever can think about it. Okay? You haven't tried it, but if you tried it, you'll find out that it gets so easy. So, don't be afraid of memorizing the Holy Quran. But if you want to memorize the Holy Quran, there is something very important, and you have to pay attention to it, and that is that you have to have a very good planning for it, and you have to have a very good schedule. Okay? If you want to memorize 1 page each day, you have to memorize 1 page each day, nothing else. Not to memorize 2 pages today and not to memorize tomorrow, or not to memorize today and compensate it tomorrow. Okay, if you do this, your memorization is going to be completely corrected. Okay, you would never be able to finish it. But if you have a very good plan for it, Okay, I can guarantee. Okay, you will be able to memorize it. And there is something else, and that is that sometimes you want to memorize the Holy Quran, but you feel that you are not in the mood of memorization. Okay, you want, but your brain is something else, it's somewhere else. The best way for you, so that you can concentrate on memorization of the Holy Quran, is that you make the same situation for yourself. For example, you do your memorization in the same time. For example, at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, you must not change it. In your own room, in the center of the carpet. I used to do my memorization on the center of my carpet. Okay, it's very important because if you do this, your brain will get used to it. Okay, when you are at 6 o'clock and you are at your own room, your brain is completely ready to memorize the Holy Quran. It's like that when it becomes 12 o'clock, your stomach asks for food, right? Because you always have had your food at 12 o'clock and your brain is used to it. Okay? So there is no day that you don't want food. Okay? Because you're used to it. You have to have it. But in Mohammad, you don't want it because your brain knows that there is no food today. Okay? So you have to prepare your brain for it and you have to make it get used to it. The best way for memorization of the Holy Quran is that you split those verses that are long, okay, into just one line. Okay? You repeat this one line, for example, 5 times from the Quran with your eyes. Then you close the Quran and repeat it 10 times again. Okay? Are you listening to me? You're talking. I think there is a meeting over there. Okay, you recite the verse from the Quran 5 times. You recite it from your memory 10 times at least. Okay? If you're sure that you can recite it without any mistakes or any stutter, you go to the next part. Okay? You memorize the next part the same way, and then you have to recite these 2 parts just once without any stutter or any mistake. If you're sure that you're fluent in these 2 parts, you can go to the 3rd part, and you can continue this so that you finish this page. You have to do 2 revisions. Okay? One of them is for those memorizations that you have recently memorized them. For example, you have memorized the page 101 today. Okay? You have to revise from page 90 to 100. Tomorrow from 91 to 101. Tomorrow from 92 to 102. This is one revision for those memorizations that are new. And you have another revision and that is for the older your memorizations. And that is that a 10th of your whole memorization. For example, you have memorized 10 parts. You have to revise 1 part each day. For example, today, part number 1. Tomorrow, number 2. Tomorrow, number 3. Yes.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you very much, sister. We want now our young children, let's see, whoever knows the surah from the Quran, come up here, please. Any of our kids? Any of the kids who know surah from the Quran, come up here? Come up here.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان بأحسن تقويم ثم رددناكم أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم